The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. You're listening to the Everyday Therapy Podcast. I'm JC Rader.
And I'm Julianne Schroeder.
And we're therapists bringing you honest conversations around emotional wellness and self-development.
Inspired by our personal experiences in therapy and because of our clients, we realize therapy has so much to offer both on and off the couch. Listen for tips and tools to navigate all the challenges that life throws your way.
To give us feedback on topics and guests, or for more information on our community events, counseling, or online services, contact us at everydaytherapypodcast.com. Hello, and let's talk about our supporters to start with. So Lifeology is a group practice, counseling practice, and they are in the heart of Dallas, as well as in Fort Worth, Austin, Grand Rapids, Michigan. They're all over the place. They have counseling interns starting at $35 per...
Major deal, y'all.
Yes, yeah. On upwards, depending on somebody's expertise, their specialty, their training and experience. They have early morning appointments, late evening appointments, as well as weekends. They are amazing. So their motto is creative solutions to stuck problems. And I just couldn't support them enough. I was trained by them and really want to encourage you, if you've ever thought about seeking out counseling, to reach out to them and just talk to them.
Yes. So Lifeology is at wefixbrains.com, and in part of their creativity in addressing mental health concerns, they have created the Lifeology Institute for Psychotherapeutic Yoga, LISPY for short. So this is a cutting-edge, innovative way of addressing both the mind and the body, which are important because they're connected, through psychotherapeutic yoga. And they train therapists as well as yoga instructors in this way of healing for any participants to become an individual psychotherapeutic yoga instructor, or clinician.
Yes, yeah. And it's just so amazing the way that sometimes talk therapy, doesn't allow for the body connection. So it's like a very different route. And we're both graduates from the program, as well as Julianne is an instructor there. So again, couldn't support them enough. Check them out. They still have some openings for their May training. Let's introduce our guest today, Dr. Christina.
We know her by her Instagram handle, Dr. Christina. Isn't that funny? Yes. And it's Dr. Christina Iglesia. Is that correct?
It is very correct.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. 100% Cuban.
It's a true fact.
Yes.
We're so excited to have you on today. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your practice?
Yeah, so I am a licensed clinical psychologist in private practice in the San Francisco Bay Area. I specialize in depression, anxiety, trauma, and substance use. And I see a pretty large age range in my practice, anywhere from children to adolescents to young adults, and then I would say to midlife range. So I see a spectrum. I see families, I see couples, I see individuals. I really like the mix that I get to work with being in private practice, and I really get to work with these people in the way that I want to, and the flexibility that comes with being kind of your own boss.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like Julian, you always talk about that. You
Yeah,
love that
there's
aspect.
definitely some perks. Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
that is not only with setting your own schedule, but really being able to like market yourself in a way that's authentic and
Yes.
being able to bring in those clients that you do the best work with,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, you can't really do that many other
Yeah.
places. And so when I left a hospital setting, because I really liked the medical interventions and that in the hospital feel, I wondered how it would be to be completely on my own. And it is scary because you don't kind of have that support system, but it really does allow you to work in the way that best suits you and then ultimately best suits the people that you work with.
Yes. I'm curious for you, what got you into this field? What kind of drew you to becoming a psychologist?
So I think it's a tale of almost all therapists, which is something in our lives happened and it made us curious, intrigued to understand mental health and mental health conditions. So for me, I didn't plan out to be a psychologist growing up. I was really into kind of more the creative fields. And when mental illness impacted my family, I got a first row seat to seeing what this really looked like and what the devastating factors could be and what the powerful healing tools and avenues could be. And so I really wanted to further investigate what was mental illness, what was the way that our body and our mind and society all fit together. And so after I took my first psychology class in undergrad, I was kind of hooked. I didn't stop. I went straight from undergrad to grad school because I just really wanted to continue to learn more about the human mind. And I continue to learn about the things that impact who we are and how we get to where we're going to be. And so I was really lucky about finding an awesome program that was based in clinical work. And I kind of just went through that, and there's been really no looking back. I think that it's a calling, and once you've heard it, you can either go with it or you can avoid it because it is hard. Being a therapist is hard.
Yes.
I don't think that we talk about that enough, but it is. It takes our own toll on our own overall sense of self and well-being. And so I think that it's a difficult field, but it's also the most rewarding work that I've ever done.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What is the most rewarding aspect of it for you?
I think seeing people heal. I mean, the human kind is so resilient, and we can overcome a lot of things. And to see somebody at a place in their lives where maybe healing isn't available, whether it's due to their own internal work or external factors, to really be able to go into that space and allow healing to happen is, I mean, it's life-changing. And to be witness to that and to observe it and to be part of it is something that I can't put to words. It's amazing.
Yeah, I consider it such an honor, right?
Yes.
Because it's such an intimate progression.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm wondering, because Christina, we wanted to bring you on because you're such an advocate for mental health, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Yes. At first, though, we could, hear from your perspective how you differentiate from mental health versus mental illness.
Yeah, I think that there is a differentiation. 1 out of 5 people in the United States suffers from a mental illness, but 5 out of 5 of us have mental health. So I think that this idea that we all have mental health, and I like to view it on a spectrum. So we have mental illness on one side, and then we're moving on over to mental wellness. And all of us fall somewhere in this spectrum. All of us can have a period of time where maybe we're not mentally well, but we're not necessarily meeting a diagnostic criteria for a mental health condition. And all of us can also come from a place where maybe we do have a mental illness, and we, through coping strategies, therapy, therapeutic interventions can move all the way over to mental wellness. So I really like to think of it as a spectrum, and that at any point, any time of our lives, we can be shifting one direction to the other.
I love that. I've never heard it described in that
Oh,
way.
good,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yay!
I'm curious for you, Christina. Will you share a little bit about your mental health, illness, wellness, whatever you want to call it, journey?
Yeah, yeah. So again, I didn't fully really understand what it was until it entered my life through my family. And I saw a family member go through an extremely traumatic event that then in turn led to substance use, self-harm, treatment. And it was so overwhelming to my system because I didn't understand it, that I did develop anxiety, and I started to have panic attacks, and I didn't understand what was happening in my life. I didn't understand what was happening in my family, and so it led me to seek out therapy, and it led me to understand that at a pretty young age I got the opportunity to learn about the mind and the body and mental health conditions, and the huge importance of accessing help and getting support in order to navigate that. And I think that once you experience that and you experience the power of therapy and healing, it's hard to not want to repay that forward. And it's hard not to want to continue to put that out in the world.
Yeah. No, we agree.
Yeah.
Everybody should be in therapy. Also, yoga. That's it.
Yeah.
And then we'll solve the world's problems.
Yeah.
I think the world would have less. So yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
No.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. For some, therapy can be like such this like nebulous sort of process, and then you don't know what to think. From your experience, what would you say you got from therapy?
I think I got from therapy, first and foremost, a safe space. I think when life's happening and chaos is there and things are hitting the fan, the safe spaces that aren't necessarily available. And I got an opportunity to walk into a space once a week that was completely safe, that was completely dedicated to me. And I truly got to sit with all my thoughts, my feelings, my ideas, my fears, my worries, and really process through them in a supportive manner. I think a lot of times in life we are just go, 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 and we don't think we need or deserve or could take time out of our day to really focus on ourselves and focus on our own mental well-being. And the fact that there is therapy out there and that this is available is huge, because we can all benefit from a better understanding of self and a better understanding of the things that cause us distress and the things that cause us joy, happiness, and health.
Absolutely. Yeah, it just seems so wild to take a whole hour out of your week to dedicate to your own feelings and thoughts. And that's so sad.
I know.
but
it's so transformational.
Yeah.
It is. It truly is.
Yeah. And to have it, that safe piece, to know that you're not going to be judged for whatever you think or feel like that, is so, so, so important, especially if you've been around others that, probably from their own judgment and insecurities have then displaced that on you, right? Whenever you have tried to, open up, right?
And I think we all want to go to our friends and family and feel like that's enough, right? But there are friends in our families. They're not therapists. And so it is important for us to make sure that we get to access those relationships the way that they are and find a different avenue to really access the things that we need professional support around.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like a lot of times, with having a therapist, you have that third party, unbiased opinion.
Yes.
And a lot of times, my mom or a friend, they'll try and fix what's going on.
Yeah.
Versus like you said, a safe place to just sit there and feel it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I was laughing, but I told you about, right? I love my mom. Okay.
Yeah.
And she's not a therapist. All right. But I had called her up the other weekend. I was just having a day and I needed to speak to someone. And I was going through something that was legitimately causing me a lot of emotional pain. I was crying, and my dear mom, who wants to, do the best, she didn't want to see her daughter in pain. Like, her responses were not what I needed. You know what I mean?
What did she say again?
Like, just something like, to the effect of,
It'll all be all right.
it'll all be all right in the end, right?
Yeah.
Which it will, but in the moment, right? Like, you need somebody who's attuned to saying, yes, this is really hard or painful and you're sad. And like, that validation is so important.
And we're trained to do that,
Yeah.
right? Like the average Joe, the
Right.
average person, Jane, is not trained to like have those reflections and validations and to sit with pain.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that's
So, Mom, you're not
hard.
doing anything wrong. Thank you. I
Yes,
love
yeah.
you.
Keep doing
And-
what you're doing, Mom. We need the moms in the world to
Right.
say it'll all be okay.
But, I share that story though, because to speak to your point, Christina, of right, like that there is a reason why, of course we encourage people to speak to their family and their support system, and there's a different element to therapy,
Yeah.
right?
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we all know that we're fans of therapy. And you're such a fan that you've created this campaign, right? Hashtag therapy is cool. Tell us about that, please.
Oh, I love it. It is my metaphorical baby. So in 2018, October 10th, so roughly 6 months ago, I launched the hashtag Therapy is Cool Mental Health Action Campaign, which is dedicated to raising awareness and combating mental health stigma while raising money for mental health organizations across the United States. So I came to this thought after a good year of hearing stigma continue to come into the therapy room, whether it was with my teen patients who would be like picking up their phone call and be like, oh, sorry, I gotta run, bye. And hanging up and saying, oh, yeah, I just can't tell them I'm in therapy, right? That was like a blatant way that stigma played a role. But also the ones that I had patients like turn off their locations on their phone because they didn't want a family member to know that they were in therapy. The secrecy, secrecy around not wanting people to know that they were engaging in a space for their mental health and their mental wellness. I started to not be able to just ignore that. I started to really be like, wow, this is like happening all the time, not just like, oh, once in a while people are maybe, a little shy around being in therapy, but it was pretty pervasive. And so I thought about, what am I supposed to do with this? What can one person, me, do to maybe shift it even just the slightest? And so I thought of, okay, well, people are saying therapy is something we don't talk about. It's saying something that maybe has a negative connotation. What is something positive, and how can I connect that with therapy? And I thought, okay, I really like the Kindness is Cool campaign, like being kind is cool. I was like, you know what's cool? Being in therapy, like being in a space where you're working on yourself and your mental health, whether or not it's big problems, small problems, but that you are really taking care of who you are is cool. And it is a gift that you give yourself. So I thought, okay, thought of a name. Now what do I do with it? And I was like, all right, what is something somebody uses every day? And I was like, oh, people use like bags, right? Yeah. And so I wanted to think of something that you could literally use every day out in the world to be your own mental health advocate and smash the stigma around therapy. And so you can use this bag for groceries. You can use this bag for your laptop, as a diaper bag, as something that you take to the gym. Like, you can use this bag in any form, no matter what you do. And you can let people know just by this hashtag that you're not afraid to talk about things. You're not afraid to talk about therapy. You're not afraid to talk about mental health. And the feedback has been amazing. It's been amazing. You guys are part of it. You see it. People are taking it and they're running with it.
Yeah, we always hashtag therapy is cool.
I know. It makes my heart so happy.
Yeah, I think you did a hashtag count the other day. Like, what was it at?
I swear I wasn't staying up really late. But it's like at like
it's a safe place here, Christina.
900 and like 92, and I was like, I'm staying up until it hits 10,000.
Oh my gosh.
I stayed up and I took a picture of it, And I posted it in my stories because I think it does matter. When this campaign started, I looked up this, and it had 100 or two uses. And so I was like, how amazing is it in 6 months? This is at 10,000 posts. That means 10,000 posts on the internet have used this hashtag. Okay.
Yes.
And that means people are taking and running with it, right? I want this to be everybody's way of advocating, because sometimes we don't know how to advocate. So why not use a few letters as a tool to advocate? Why not use a bag that you're going to need anyways as a tool to advocate? We can make advocacy accessible for all of us.
Yes.
Yeah, and fun. I feel like it's such a conversation starter, to have this bag, not only to say like, I'm an advocate for therapy, but like, hey, tell me about that.
Yes. And people do. And I get so many emails of people like saying like conversations that went really great, and then conversations that like went totally sour because they saw Stigma live. Right. And so one of the posts I did was a girlfriend of mine was having it in a bag, and somebody said, oh, what's that bag mean? And she did an awesome job explaining, this is to raise awareness and break stigma and let people know that it's okay to talk about your feelings and thoughts and struggles. And the person in the elevator said, well, you better be careful because somebody might think you're in therapy.
Oh,
exactly
you're like, that's
the reason.
the point.
I know. And she said, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
But
I'm
people respond differently.
Yeah. I'm curious for you, Christina, because I do have so many clients, like same situation of like, I'm their life coach, or whatever it is.
I'm the doctor. I have a doctor's appointment today.
Yeah.
It is. And I think that it's okay to have reservations on how you talk about therapy, because I think it is a personal choice on who, what, when, and where you share this. And at the same time, what I want to remove is the barrier of stigma. I want people to disclose about therapy if they feel like they want to, not because they have to stay silent. And to me, that's different.
And that was my question of people who like genuinely there is this fear of judgment and maybe grew up in the stigma. Like, what are some ways for them to build comfort with therapy for themselves? And maybe it's not carrying a bag yet, but working towards that. What would that look like?
I think baby steps lead to big strides, lead to big goals, right? Like, I think that in any way a person can feel comfortable even talking about mental health, not even their own, just like the topic, start there, right? And then take a step forward towards maybe mental health and someone they know that struggles with it. Take a step there, maybe mental health and how they experience it. Take a step there. So I think that all of us can try to figure out ways to talk about it that are still within our comfort zone, because it's not helpful for anybody to be pushed out of their comfort zone for advocacy, right? Then it feels not right. So it's about, okay, you don't want to wear the bag, you're not ready to kind of shout from the rooftops, I love therapy, that's okay.
Or you still buy the bag to support the cause, but maybe you're building up to wearing it.
And you know what's so interesting is that when I first started, I got like a trickle effect of people sending me the pictures, because on the hashtag #TherapyIsCool account, every day I'm posting pictures that are sent to me. And I swear there's power in numbers, because once maybe I hit to like post 50, they started flooding in. And people are like, okay, I can take a picture with this tote and post it on social media. So it's an invitation to like open the door and see that a few people are taking that risk and are saying, hey, I'm going to rock this tote and I'm going to do a post on social media and say like, it's cool, everybody. Therapy is where it's at. And it opened the door for other people to do it. And they did. And now I'm like 3 weeks behind on like trying to get these photos uploaded every day, because now people are taking it and owning it. And that is the beauty.
That's gotta be so cool to see. Can we talk social media then, and how it can help with mental health advocacy, and then also like where there can be some challenges?
Yes. So I've been actually writing about this for Psychology, Psych Central, and I did a news spot on this at KTV Fox News because it is a big thing. Thinking about how we use social media and the impacts on our mental health. And so my thought is social media can be wonderful, obviously. We, all three of us, think like, yes, it can be great. It can bring people together. It can be empowering. It can connect people from all over the world. And at the same time, where does it begin to run a risk on negatively affecting us? And what are ways for us to really kind of take inventory of that? So the first thing I talk about usually is the time spent. I really encourage people who like social media to also keep in mind and track how much time are you spending on it.
Which
Every
with the
single app.
iPhone, there's a new,
Yeah.
which is scary statistic about how much you're using social media.
Oh yeah, no, I don't look at it. Yep.
Yeah, no, if you want to be uncomfortable, just check out
I'm like, but it's for work purposes.
What? It's for work, you guys. But yeah, it is. Each of these apps and your phone, if you want to even know how much you're on your phone, it'll tell you. It can track how much your time. So think of what is a reasonable time for you, because all of us have a different definition about that, and stick to it. And if it's hard to stick to, that might mean that you were using it excessively. Another way to check in is if you're spending time scrolling through social media and you are walking away feeling bad. If you're feeling good on social media and you're like, I'm there and I'm empowering people
I'm
and I'm
inspired.
saying,
Yes.
yeah, that's one thing, right? But if you're there and you're like, oh, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not successful enough, then it is affecting you in a negative way, right? And sometimes we're conscious of that and sometimes we're not. So you really do, again, have to be mindful of what your social media use is looking like and how are you feeling before, during, and after you're on it.
Yeah. And how about,
like that.
Christina, specifically with social media, in terms of advocacy, like how can it be helpful? And then I guess how can, I don't know, I guess I'm just going to be honest and ask the question. I mean, how do we find boundaries in terms of some people self-disclosing and maybe in a way that's not helpful?
I think it's hard because I think that advocacy brings people together and everybody's in a different place. And some people are there to be a supporter and sometimes there are people there to share their own experiences, and sometimes it's a nice mix and sometimes it's more of the other. Either way, I try to always focus on keeping at least the conversations that I'm having on social media based on support, compassion, and education. I think that we can't control what other people are putting out there. We can only control the role we're playing in it. So I think all of us have come across social media posts where they're really negative or attacking or saying, don't say this, you should say this, and what should have been maybe a healthy, constructive conversation somehow turned sideways. So I always tell myself, like, I can only control me and how I present on social media. And so if other people are not clicking with that or can't respect that, then that's really on them.
I really like that. Yeah, can you speak to, Christina, of like the aspect? So we're saying like advocate for therapy, like share mental health stories, mental illness on social media or in person. What is the benefit of doing that for a person, like other than the stigma, like with that vulnerability, like what can somebody like gain from that?
I personally think that our secrets keep us sick. And if we are being secretive and silent from our mental health condition because there's shame and stigma and discrimination surrounding it, then we are going to continue to struggle. And so when we open that door up to whatever, ability that we feel like we can, we are releasing that from our box of secrets. We no longer have to hide or pretend that these aren't things that we are struggling with. And so when I share that I struggle with anxiety, I'm letting other people know that A, it's okay to talk about it. B, it's something that I want to share because I think that it doesn't define me. It's just part of something that I experience. And so therefore I'm okay talking about it. And so I try to model that as a way to encourage people to know that if they're going to be secretive and they're going to shut down and stay silent, they're going to continue to suffer. So why not speak to the amount that you can about whatever is going on?
Wow. Secrets keep you sick.
Yep.
Yeah. And even with you sharing about your anxiety, like I feel this connection to you
Yeah.
and like kind of a sense of belonging because I struggle with anxiety.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. And that's, like healing to me.
Yeah.
And I know that that can be so healing to other people to be able to share that and just relate to somebody.
Yeah, we are not alone, right? And our mental health condition or struggle makes us sometimes feel like we are. And so why not use it as a way to connect? Because what we know is that millions of people struggle.
Yeah.
Millions. And so we know them in our lives, and they are not talking about it due to a list of reasons. And maybe we need to invite that conversation, open the door for other people to feel like they can as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I just love you calling out the fact that there are, I mean, not calling out, but pointing out that there are so many struggles and that are not being talked about, like objectively. I think, Brene Brown is saying like we're the most addicted, stressed out society, right?
Yeah.
And then it's manifesting in actions, right?
Yeah.
But let's get, what is leading to the substance use, to the workaholism, to the sex addiction, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's address these issues that we know are happening.
Right. But people just don't want to talk about it because it feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It feels, again, I always go back to it feels stigmatizing. It feels like people are going to use it. And they do. And that's also part of the problem is like people use your struggles against you. And that is why people stay silent, because if people don't know, then they can't be like, oh, you're so crazy, or oh, you're just being sensitive, or oh, and that is so harmful and hurtful to people who are trying to be vulnerable and open up these conversations around mental health.
Yeah, I think, and tell me if you agree with this. And part of the work is first getting into a safe place, then to build that sense of self and worthiness so that you can be able to like have that appropriate barrier and not take on people's criticism.
Yeah. And it's hard, right? Like, I think we are feeling humans and we are impacted by the way people talk to us and about us and around us. And so we can open doors or close them depending on what we are feeling. And so it is something that all of us learn how to navigate, hopefully with some support and some idea that we are worthy of healing and recovery and living a fulfilled life.
Yes.
Can you speak to some of your favorite tools that you share with clients that work for you as far as that healing process of that, like developing that self-worth, creating kind of mental wellness?
Yes. So I am such a big advocate for mindfulness. I think it's a term that's used a lot, but maybe isn't fully described. And so I see it as being in the present moment without judgment and truly inviting myself to be in each and every moment for what it is and not allowing myself or the world to bring judgments around what that is. I think that mindfulness coupled with gratitude, which is something that I talk a lot about, really allows me to live a more fulfilled and less stressed existence. So being mindful of my thoughts, being mindful of my body, being mindful of my environment, and truly just being in the present moment for what it is, and then coupling that with self-compassion and gratitude, and truly just appreciating things that are easy and that are hard, that are positive and that are negative, allows me to navigate life, I think, if I'm looking kind of before and after I had these tools in my life, a little easier, a little kinder, and hopefully a better version of myself.
Yes, those are some favorites of ours too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes. So going back to stigma and ways that
Yeah.
like we can help, what are phrases that you would love for everybody to know and how to respond when somebody discloses about any sort of mental health concerns?
So when you're saying phrases, clarify what you're saying.
The responses, like what are helpful responses
Okay,
for those
perfect.
that like don't know what to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if somebody is talking to you about their mental health struggles, sometimes we as people want to fix it, make it go away, and cure it all in one sentence. Somehow we're going to help. And I always try to encourage people that if somebody in your life comes forward and says, hey, I'm struggling with addiction, I'm struggling with PTSD, instead of going to the end goal, which for, let's say, addiction, have them stop drinking, how do you sit and just support them in them disclosing something that they're struggling with? So if somebody in your life says, hey, I'm struggling with alcohol, a way to respond that would show support and compassion could be, I really appreciate you telling me that. How can I support you?
Wow, that's so
Instead of,
good.
right? Like instead of
Yeah.
automatically being like, whoa, that makes me feel overwhelmed and I want to fix it and I don't want you struggling. So let's get you to rehab and let's get you stopping today and let's call these people. I mean, we can all go in crisis mode. And sometimes when people are approaching us, they're dipping their toe in the water to see how we respond.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
And
great
we
point.
can shut that door very quickly if we come on too strong, too aggressively. And sometimes what people really just need us to do is like, I hear you, I see you, I validate you. How can I be there for you?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I think you created an Instagram like infographic of
Yes,
sorts
I've
about
been doing
this,
that
right?
for a few things. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Like we'll have to repost and reshare. So that's a really solid response. Are there any other favorites of yours?
In terms of response, I think that one of the things that maybe get left behind when we're comparing physical illness to mental illness is that I talk a lot about when somebody breaks their leg and they're in the hospital, people come and they visit and they bring flowers and hot dinners and say, hey, do you need help with little Susie getting to school, right? And when somebody is hospitalized for a mental health issue or condition, there aren't flowers and there aren't hot meals and there aren't helping Susie get to school. So one of the ways I tell people to talk about mental health when it's disclosed to them is by responding and saying, how can I help? What can I take off your plate? Can I help Susie get to school so that you can have a few days to reset? Really understanding that people need help and the people that need help aren't necessarily going to be asking friends and family for it. And so how can we offer it right up the front like we would if they had a physical illness or condition or disorder that they were struggling with?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it sounds like getting really specific and saying, like, what specifically can I help with?
Right. Can I do grocery shopping? Can I get you a coffee?
Yeah.
Like, don't underestimate the power of kindness and compassion, because when we're struggling, we don't necessarily need somebody to fix everything. We just need somebody to show kindness and care. And that can come in so many forms that we are all able to provide.
Yeah. And it can be really uncomfortable to sit with somebody else's pain
Yes.
and just be there with that.
Yep. Yep. I agree.
You know, I was thinking as you were sharing that analogy to, seeking medical care, I'm wondering if a lot of your work is this education and sharing with others about just the biological and I guess influences on mental health.
Yeah, I really view mental health conditions from a biopsychosocial model, which talks about the biological factors, the psychological factors, and then the social factors. And the fact that when things are heavily loaded in all of those areas, we will easily find ourselves to be in a state where we are struggling. So it is important when we're in our medical care, in our therapy, to also be looking at all three of those spaces and seeing what's contributing, what's adding kind of fuel to the fire, and what could be things that could be done that would ease up some of these compounding factors that are making us feel so low and our struggles so big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that a lot of my clients are able to work through shame when I have a specialty with disordered eating. And, when I share to them, hey, this isn't a choice
Yes.
in terms of like 50 to 80% of this being predisposed like by
Yes.
genetics. So I know, I just, if more people can know, right, about that, I think that would be so helpful.
I think it takes away this idea that people are responsible
Yeah.
for these medical conditions showing up. There's this idea that depressed people want to be depressed, or that anxious people want to be anxious. It's like nobody wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I really want to struggle. Nobody. So we have to take that away and understand that people who are struggling are truly struggling, and this is not because they want it. It's because there are factors that have come together that have become a perfect storm that have created this, and they need love and support and compassion versus judgment, shame, and discrimination.
Yeah, not helpful.
Nope.
No, yeah, it's cringy when I hear, from those that don't understand or supporters of, like, well, they're just doing this for attention.
I know. And I tell people, okay, let's say they are. What do you think they're really needing? Because that tells me that there's this unmet need that they're doing this to get. So, okay, maybe they are.
Yeah.
Let's go that route then. Because there's a reason that we get louder about our symptoms, and they become louder because there's a need that's not being met, and we need to figure out what that is.
That's so good. Yeah. I hear that from a lot of like parents and
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's think here. We've covered, I guess, a lot about, what are misconceptions and ways to respond. Is there anything else that from your end that you really want listeners to know?
Yes, I really want to hit home the fact that the words we use when talking about mental health and mental health conditions do matter. So the example that I use is we have often heard things like, this weather is so bipolar. Oh, I am so OCD.
Yeah.
And so I really want to encourage people who are listening to really check in with themselves and the language that they use when they're talking about themselves, mental health, mental illness, because the words we use either fuel stigma or they re-educate people. So we want to always be using first person language. So when I'm talking about, let's say, somebody with anxiety, I say, Susie is struggling with anxiety, right? Susie is the person, she's first, and she is struggling with something, right? Versus, let's say somebody has the diagnosis of schizophrenia. I'm not saying Susie's a schizophrenic. I'm saying Susie has the diagnosis of schizophrenia. We really need to empower people through information education that people have diagnoses, but they're not defined by them. And we need to use compassionate language around that so that it's not further fueling stigma and misconceptions, and talk of using things like, I'm so OCD as like an adjective when it's not.
Absolutely.
That's my preach.
Yes,
Yeah,
no,
no,
that's
we
so
we
good.
get it, I
Yeah.
like can't stand when I hear like, oh, she's so anorexic, or
Yeah.
I mean,
Like that's not what anorexia is, right?
Yeah.
And that's not the only shape it takes. And
Yeah.
why are we propelling this misconception out there that's going to lead people to do more judgment and more harm instead of like opening the door for conversation and healing? I think our words matter and the things we say matter because people are listening and people are taking it and responding to it.
Yes. Yeah. People are people, and we have our stories and our backgrounds, and I think we need to be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christina, is there any resources that you feel like are super helpful for your clients that you share with other people that have been helpful for you?
Yeah, I think it depends what I'm working on with the client, but the number one resource that I really try to give out all day, every day is additional support systems. I think that therapy is amazing and it's a gift that we can give ourselves, but sometimes we need more support. And so I'm always giving out depending on what the struggle is. So if it is a family that I'm working with somebody that has a serious mental illness, I give out the NAMI information in their area so that they can go and they can get their family support. If it's a family where there is somebody who has an addiction, I give out information about Al-Anon and how they can have support. So I think that when people are coming in, they are part of a system, and how can we support all parts versus just the individual who's struggling, but the people in their lives also need support. And so how can we help bridge that gap and give them resources as well?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Agree 100%. Yes. My goodness. We are so thankful that you're so passionate, and your clients are lucky to have you that advocating for them. And for those that aren't clients yet, how can people get in contact with you?
Yes. So I am on social media through Instagram. So you can find me at Dr. Christina, and the hashtag therapy.
Uh-oh.
We are having some technical difficulties. I will get her back on the line.
Hashtag therapy is cool is
Yes.
what she was about to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we always hashtag that and think it's so important to share that whenever it feels comfortable for you. But also love her bags that she has to offer. And I didn't know like the background with all of it and like the funding that goes towards it. Hey, Christina, sorry
She's
we
back.
lost you.
Yeah. She's back.
Yes. So we were just sharing a little bit more about therapy is hashtag therapy is cool. Any other ways that people can get in contact with you? And we'll link all of this as well.
No, yeah, sorry about that. That's on my end. So there is the hashtag therapy is cool Instagram account and Facebook account.
Okay.
The only thing to remember is that you have to spell out the word hashtag and then it's therapy and cool. So hashtag therapy is cool. And you can also find us on the website, which is www.hashtagtherapyiscool, also spelled out, .com. And that is where you can get all the updates. Each month, the proceeds go to a different organization. So if you're like, where is it going this month? You can find it there. I also repost all the photos that are on the social media account on my update section so that people can really kind of log on, see what's available, see what's new with the campaign, and kind of follow along, whether they're on social media or not.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. It's such a catchy name too.
Yeah,
So.
I feel like it's so hip. I don't know if I'm dating myself, but hashtag therapy is cool is really hip.
Yes. Thank you so much for being a part of this and, helping others in the way that you are. So
Thank you so much for having me and giving me an opportunity to talk about the things that I love to talk about.
Yes.
Yes, we can tell you're excited and passionate and you're meant to do this.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Christina.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Everyday Therapy Podcast. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes and share with your friends. It really helps us reach more people.
We might only record once a week, but we're with you every day.